In the midst of a city in chaos, we can see two children who are swiftly fleeing from something that is chasing them. However, before they could escape unharmed, the monster pursuing them blocks their path. In that moment, one of the boys recognizes it as a savage, and just then, the savage shoots a powerful beam at both of them, causing a massive explosion. As a result, the boy is severely separated from the girl who was with him. The savage takes advantage of this and grabs the girl with its large pincers, piercing her and injecting a lethal poison. Just then, a reinforcement of tanks starts firing at the savage to neutralize it, managing to inflict some damage, and the monster releases the girl. When the boy approaches the girl, he notices a severe wound on her, so he begins to try and suck out the poison left by the savage using his mouth, all the while crying out of fear of losing her. After this deep scene, a boy wakes up on a plane. This is none other than our protagonist, Hayato Kisaragi. The boy reflects on what he just dreamed about because it was a memory from his past, although he can't quite remember it all. He wonders who was the girl he was trying to help. Suddenly, as he looks out the window, he sees that he has arrived at the school ship city called Little Garden, where he will reside from now on. Upon disembarking from the plane, the protagonist sees two girls waiting for him with a big welcome sign. He decides to hide to avoid them and goes in another direction. Later on, we see the boy using his GPS to navigate to the building where the entrance ceremony will take place. To make sure he's in the right place, he approaches one of the students and asks if this is where the entrance ceremony will be held. A girl recognizes him as the student who entered the school with the best grades. Her recognition causes a crowd of students to gather around him, unable to believe that he achieved excellent grades. However, he manages to slip away and escape. While the protagonist is hiding by the side of the building, a girl introduces herself as Emile Crossford. She tells him that she is also a new student, though she changes her gender during the conversation. Later, inside the school, we see the girl who recognized the protagonist earlier, the one who caused the other students to surround him, apologizing for what happened. Standing beside her is the blonde boy who had talked to the protagonist when he first arrived at the school, teasing the girl for being so outgoing with Hayato. They both introduce themselves to the protagonist. The girl is Laisha Singh Emilian and the blonde boy as Fritz Grants. They find it strange that Emil and the protagonist are displaying affection, as it's unusual for them to see two boys showing affection in that way. They end up believing the lie that Emil is a boy. The scene changes and we move to the auditorium where the entrance ceremony will take place. A girl thanks everyone for attending and introduces herself as Erica Candle, a second-year student in martial arts and the vice president of the student council. Following her, another girl introduces herself as Liddy Steinberg and informs the audience that the captain and president of Little Garden, Claire Harvey, will be arriving shortly. Right at that moment, Claire steps onto the stage from the door, a tall blonde with an extravagant hairstyle. Before she can say anything, two girls interrupt the ceremony. These are the two girls who were waiting for the protagonist at the airport, arriving late due to this reason. They try to explain to Claire, who rebukes them, convinced that Hayato had been in the auditorium all the time. Claire scolds them, addressing them by their names, Noah Sheldon and Liu Xrimi, and decides to permanently expel them from Little Garden. This stirs up murmurs from the crowd. Emil stands up in protest and tells Claire that she disagrees with the decision to expel the girls for a minor mistake. She emphasizes that she dislikes seeing people abusing their power. This sparks a discussion between them. Erica and Liddy also join in to support the president, warning Emil that she might get expelled if she doesn't keep quiet. The protagonist tries to quiet Emil, covering her mouth with his hands. However, Claire decides to expel Emil as well. Following this, Claire asks Hayato if he agrees with her decision to expel the girls and Emil. He responds that he disagrees, surprising everyone since it's his first day at Little Garden. In response, Claire declares war on the protagonist, proposing a duel for the next afternoon. If he wins, nobody will be expelled. If he loses, everyone, including him, will be expelled. The protagonist is unsure of how to respond, so Emil jumps in and accepts the duel on his behalf, confident that he can defeat Claire. Afterward, Emil takes the protagonist to the school's laboratory, while he complains about her accepting the duel. Before they enter the elevator to reach the lab, Emil mentions that she's taking him there to introduce him to a friend. This friend is the head technologist of Little Garden and the chief researcher of the 100. Upon reaching the lab, the technologist introduces herself to the protagonist as Charlotte Demandias, encouraging him to call her Char for short. Another girl comes out from behind Char and sniffs Hayato, making him feel uncomfortable. She introduces herself as Mimi, Char's humanoid robot assistant who behaves oddly but is highly capable. After the introductions, Char and Emil get into a dispute because Emil referred to Char as a kid due to her short stature. In retaliation, Char tries to reveal Emil's real name, but before she can finish, Emil pinches her cheeks and scolds her. Following this, as they converse, Char mentions Lisa, the autonomous computer that controls everything in Little Garden. Lisa notified Char about the duel between the protagonist and Claire. Char then raises her hand to hand over the protagonist's 100. However, before she does, she explains what the hundreds are. She says that they are devices that grant powers and weapons to those who possess them, varying from person to person. Only those who respond to the variable stones can use them, and these people are known as Slayers. Their sole purpose is to protect humanity from the savages. After Char gives the protagonist his 100, he and Emil head to the training room. Emil explains to him that the suit he's wearing is called a variable suit, which is crucial for his 100's effectiveness. She tells him that he needs to say 100 on to activate his powers. Before he activates his 100, Emil steps back to give him space. After activating his 100, the protagonist is congratulated by Char on the large screen. Char mentions that his 100 is called Heen, an imposing long sword. Shortly after, Emil activates her 100 armed shroud, which are white cannons that shoot beams and can transform into various weapons. They begin to train, but the protagonist seems to struggle as he ends up on the ground, cornered by Emil and her cannons. After their training session, Hayato and Emil leave the room to go to their shared room. However, Hayato is interrupted by a call from his sister, Karen, who had been trying to reach him all afternoon. He had promised to visit her after the entrance ceremony. He leaves to see her, telling Emil to return to the room alone. Later, Hayato arrives at the hospital where his sister, Karen, is. She's there due to an illness that has left her body fragile and weak. He apologizes for arriving late, and although Karen initially refuses to forgive him, she changes her mind after he kissed her on the forehead. They engage in a heartfelt conversation between siblings. In the midst of their talk, Nurse Miharu appears, notifying Karen that visiting hours are over and Hayato must leave. The protagonist can't help but stare at Miharu's large, which resemble balloons. Karen scolds him for being a... As night falls, the protagonist heads to his dormitory. Upon entering, he sees Emil after a shower. He blushes and she starts throwing objects at him, eventually knocking him out with a suitcase. As Emil tries to wake him, he startles awake and accidentally headbutts her nose when he sees her leaning over him. They start arguing, Emil scolding him for not knocking before entering and the protagonist telling Emil that it's strange for men to have someone on their lap. Eventually, he realizes it's his room and questions why Emil is there. He learns that they will be roommates from now on. Emil then asks him to hand over his uniform so she can fix a patch that came off. While Emil repairs Hayato's uniform, she accidentally pricks her thumb, causing the protagonist to worry due to his past experience trying to save the girl from the savage. On impulse, he grabs Emil's hand and starts her thumb to prevent further. Emil blushes at the unexpected gesture. The protagonist, the first aid kit, places a band-aid on Emil's thumb and explains that he can't stand seeing people. Since a savage attacked him and the girl in his past, he has always tried to help the... The next day, Claire and Hayato meet in the arena, ready to begin their duel. They activate their 100s before the fight commences. The audience and the protagonist's friends watch nervously, concerned that he might lose. The duel between Claire and the protagonist is about to begin, but before this, Liddy starts to dictate the rules of the game, explaining that the time limit is 15 minutes and the duel will end when one of them becomes unconscious or runs out of energy to continue using their 100. After Liddy's words, Claire informs her that she won't use her full body armor, as she believes it would end the battle too quickly, and she wants it to be fair for the audience. Following this, Emil communicates with the protagonist through a communicator, telling him to follow the plan she mentioned during their training to defeat Claire. As a result of this, Erica overhears them and reprimands them, stating that third-party assistance during the fight is prohibited. However, Claire calms Erica down, explaining that the protagonist can receive any help and guidance he needs, understanding that he's new to the school. A countdown timer starts, and when it reaches 0, the battle begins. However, before they can truly fight, the protagonist makes a clumsy move that propels him at high speed towards Claire. Due to this, Hayato ends up on top of Claire, and as he's about to get up, he accidentally touches Claire's, making her blush. When the protagonist realizes what he was touching, he quickly gets up and apologizes to Claire. She tells him she won't forgive him because it's the first time someone has touched her. In retaliation, she attacks Hayato with all her fury. After Claire inflicts some damage on the protagonist, she prepares her cannons to finish him off, but Emil guides him through the communicator, telling him to activate the energy barrier. This allows him to defend against Claire's attacks. Following this, Emil asks the protagonist why he touched Claire's, showing a hint of jealousy. The protagonist explains it was an accident and tells her not to be jealous. To change the subject, Emil instructs him to counterattack against Claire. Claire evades all of the protagonist's attacks, prompting Emil to suggest using a special move. Without hesitation, Hayato employs the move, which involves creating a powerful energy ball with his sword and launching it at Claire with great force and speed. Smoke fills the arena, and it's revealed that Claire protected herself from the attack using a shield formed by her 100's cannons. Not willing to stand idle, she counterattacks using the lasers from her cannons, leaving the protagonist almost defeated on the ground. However, he declares he won't give up easily, gets up, and tries to continue fighting. In response, Claire prepares a more powerful attack to defeat the protagonist once and for all. She reveals her Buster Cannon and fires a powerful beam at high speed. Just before the beam reaches the protagonist, he starts feeling a strange warmth running through his body. He jumps to avoid the attack and charges at Claire with great speed, ensuring to destroy her cannon. He attacks Claire repeatedly with his sword, this time with more precision, forcing her to dodge every single one of his strikes. Exhausted from evading attacks, Claire regenerates her Buster Cannon and prepares to fire at the protagonist. However, he remains unfazed as he activates his full body armor, causing panic in Claire. As a result, Claire decides to also activate her full body armor. Once she does, she attacks the protagonist with various projectiles, and then uses a massive cannon to fire a powerful laser beam, so potent that it pierces through the battlefield's ceiling. This attack leaves Hayato unconscious on the ground. Emil rushes onto the stage to check if he's alive. Seeing signs of life, she is relieved. She then confronts Claire, accusing her of cheating by using the full body armor, even though she initially said she wouldn't. Char appears and clarifies that Claire's action isn't against the rules, but Claire acknowledges that what she did was wrong as she broke her word. She admits defeat and leaves the scene. Later, the protagonist is seen resting in a bed at Little Garden's hospital, now recovered. He wakes up to find Claire standing there, so he quickly gets up, knowing that he, as well as No, Liu, and Emil, are at risk of being expelled. To his surprise, Claire informs him that no one will be expelled. However, he's unable to forget the situation and asks Claire why she's there. She starts questioning him about how he activated his full-body armor so easily, considering it's impossible for a newcomer to do so. At that moment, Emil enters the room and sees Claire very close to the protagonist, so she steps between them, thinking that Claire might have harmful intentions. Claire explains that she came to apologize to the protagonist and Emil leaves the room. Later on, Claire is shown riding in a car driven by Liddy. She gazes out the window, reflecting on the battle against the protagonist. Erica asks if her demeanor is due to losing the battle, but Claire responds that it's not the case. Erica misunderstands, assuming that Claire's upset because the protagonist touched her, to which Claire nervously denies. The next morning, the protagonist wakes up in his room fully recovered. Meanwhile, Emil is very close to him, worried about his well-being. This causes the protagonist to question why she's so concerned when he's already fine. However, Emil doesn't provide an answer. Hayato mentions that he's hungry, so Emil hands him a juice to help him regain his energy as the battle depleted him. After a while, Emil invites him to go to the city center, suggesting that he can eat as much as he wants. The protagonist agrees and Emil seems unusually excited. He asks why she's so enthusiastic, and she replies that she's happy because the invitation to the city center is basically an invitation to a date, causing the protagonist to spit out his juice in surprise. At the city center, they walk among the crowd while enjoying ice cream. The protagonist starts feeling odd because everyone seems to be looking at him. Emil explains that they're staring because of the battle against Claire, making him feel like a superstar. After a scene where they share ice cream, Emil leads the protagonist to a quieter place. When they arrive, Hayato realizes that the area is filled with couples, making him feel uncomfortable. A comment from Emil causes him to turn red as a tomato. Karen calls him, expressing her concern about the battle against Claire and that he didn't tell her anything about it. During the conversation, Karen mentions that she noticed a woman was with him through their letters, so she asks if it's true. The protagonist denies it, insisting that he's not with anyone. Karen then announces she will personally visit to confirm things. Karen arrives in her wheelchair, notices that her brother isn't alone, and Emil introduces herself to Karen. Karen questions if Emil is a boy or a girl, as she finds her strange. Emil confirms she's a boy, and Karen proceeds to ask if he likes men, causing the protagonist to scold her for asking such a question. Later, while they walk, Karen asks Emil if she plans to seduce her brother. Emil denies it, stating that they're both boys, which reassures Karen. Karen warns Emil that if he tries to hurt Hayato, she'll deal with him. They notice an advertisement for a concert by Sakura Kirishima, Karen's favorite idol singer. Karen informs them that Sakura will perform an outdoor concert on the Zway Islands. Emil says they're relatively close, and the protagonist promises his sister that they'll go see the concert together someday. Karen then reveals her desire to visit a specific place she's wanted to go for a long time, leading them to a cafe where they each order food. Karen is delighted with her delicious meal, and Emil offers some of her food to her, making the girl even happier, but she is indifferent towards Emil. Just then, Claire arrives with Liddy and Erica. Karen recognizes Claire's unique hairstyle and makes a humorous comment about it. Claire overhears and asks the protagonist who the spoiled brat is who just insulted her. Before Hayato can reply, Chris Steinbelt, who looks like a young boy, answers the question and introduces himself as Claire's assistant. Claire asks the protagonist for his assistance with the student council, and Emil jumps in, saying that he doesn't have to help. Liddy and Erica reassure Emil that they're not forcing him but inviting him to join the team. Char appears and tells Emil that he needs to be present as well. Claire invites the protagonist to join the Selections, a special unit of the student council. She believes his powerful 100 can eliminate the remaining savages threatening humanity. Claire emphasizes that it's not mandatory to accept, but suggests that someone with great power should use it for the benefit of humanity. Emil playfully insists that if the protagonist agrees, he's coming along too, even though he hasn't been officially invited. Liddy intervenes, stating that Emil isn't qualified to be a slayer due to his lack of power. Emil challenges Liddy to a duel to prove himself, but they're interrupted by an emergency alarm. Claire explains that savages are attacking Zway Island, so they need to leave. Before they depart, Char informs the protagonist that he's needed. Char asks if he's ready for his first real battle against the savages, leaving the protagonist to contemplate his decision. The squadron of young slayers led by Claire arrives at the control base where they monitor savage activity with Chris's assistance. Claire shares her plan to distract the savages while reinforcements from the Warsland, led by her brother Duel, arrive. When she tries to leave, the protagonist insists on joining, revealing that he also suffered an attack from a savage long ago, resulting in the loss of part of his memories. He expresses his eagerness to defeat every single savage, not just distract them. Char informs Claire that the idea to involve the protagonist in the mission actually came from Liza, shocking Claire. Reluctantly, she accepts the protagonist's involvement. Char also mentions that Emil must come along as per Liza's requirement. Liza confirms this, putting Claire at ease. While on an airplane, Claire explains the attack plan. She, Liddy, and Erika will confront a normal savage and a massive one referred to as a Trenta class, while Hayato and Emil will face a normal savage. Upon arrival, Claire and the other girls jump from the airplane, activate their hundreds, and attack the normal savage while descending. Working together, they swiftly defeat it by destroying its core. Now it's Emil and the protagonist's turn. Emil unexpectedly pushes the protagonist out of the plane and explains that he needs to activate his 100. They successfully attack the savage, and after considerable effort, they destroy its core with an arrow from Emil. Meanwhile, the girls face the enormous savage Trentet, expecting an easy victory. However, it inflicts serious on Liddy and Erika. Claire attempts to use her full body armor and buster cannon, but the monster thwarts her attack. She tries once more but realizes she's out of energy. The savage attacks and the protagonist intervenes, saving her. Claire blushes as the protagonist carries her like a princess, teasing her for taking away another first time and touching her again. The savage attacks once more, and they both use their power to protect the airport and the people inside. After dodging the attack, the protagonist sets Claire down, and she collapses due to her weakness. Emil appears and helps the two defeat the monster, scolding the protagonist for talking to Claire and showing a hint of jealousy. As the savage attempts to attack Liddy, Emil shields her. The savage retaliates with one of its claws, revealing Emil's true gender as Amelia. Upon seeing this, the protagonist recalls a childhood memory and realizes that Amelia is the girl he saved. He shouts her true name, Amelia, and she tells him to calm him down, helping him regain control. He ultimately defeats the savage by in half. Claire scolds Emil for kissing the protagonist and points out her gender confusion. It becomes clear to Claire that Emil is Amelia and has always been a woman. On the way back to Little Garden, the protagonist reflects on his experiences while the others recover from their... Hayato tells his sister everything that happened, and she's relieved that no one was seriously hurt. Due to her concern for her brother, she demands a forehead to calm her nerves, which the protagonist willingly gives. Afterward, the protagonist returns to his room and talks with Amelia. She reveals that the president allowed her to continue pretending to be a boy but required her to change rooms. Amelia explains more about variants, people infected by savage venom, revealing that both she and the protagonist are variants. Suddenly, the protagonist feels unwell and falls onto Amelia, ending up on her. To match her passionate, she kicks her back. As they chat, Amelia worries that the protagonist dislikes her, but he reassures her. Just as he's about to prove his point, Claire arrives, surprised by their interaction. The protagonist hastily explains that nothing improper was happening, but while approaching Claire, he trips and falls onto her, accidentally kicking her. Amelia scolds Claire for kicking the protagonist and asks for another kick from him. A rivalry ensues between the girls for the protagonist's attention, and other students gather to listen to the quarrel. Shifting scenes, Sakura is seen in her private plane watching a video of the protagonist defeating the savage on Zway Island and dubbing him a hero for his incredible feat. While Sakura bathes and hums a tune, her assistant talks on the phone explaining that Sakura wants a specific person to be her bodyguard during her concert. On the other hand, the protagonist is training as a team with Amelia, who is pretending to be a boy against Fritz and Leisha. During various attacks, Fritz launches a surprise attack. Hayato starts feeling like he's losing control again but manages to focus and avoid it, ultimately winning alongside Amelia. Erika congratulates him over the intercom and notifies him that Claire wants to see him for a selection mission. Upon arriving at Claire's office, she explains that the mission involves being Sakura's bodyguard as Sakura requested him specifically. After considering it, the protagonist accepts the mission. Already on Zway Island, the protagonist is awakened by Amelia. He's surprised to see her and she invites him outside, but he declines, mentioning the impending mission. Hayato then goes with Liddy to find Sakura. Sakura disembarks from the plane, her long hair flowing in the wind. She greets Liddy and the protagonist before leaving the area. As they exit the airport, the crowds cheer for Sakura due to her fame, surprising the protagonist. However, her assistant explains that it's a common occurrence for her. They get into a car with Liddy driving and converse on their way to Sakura's accommodations. Upon arrival, the protagonist opens the door for Sakura. She tells him she needs to do something as his bodyguard, and he realizes he didn't check the room. Embarrassed, he quickly inspects the room and assures Sakura it's safe. Inside, much to Hayato's surprise, Sakura tells him she wants to marry him and shows him a video of his heroic act, Shocked by her future plans, he pretends to accept her proposal to intimidate her. When she goes to take a bath, she asks him for his phone. While attempting to pass it to her, he accidentally sees her clothes strewn about. She tries to grab them from him, leading to an awkward situation where he accidentally sees her. Later, he recalls his sister's warning about women and water. Afterwards, he accompanies Sakura through her day's activities like press conferences. At the end of the day, they head to the concert venue where he learns Sakura is a slayer who specializes in combat without weapons. As Hayato walks and talks with Claire, she asks him to find her the next morning. He decides to relax in a jacuzzi-like bath in his room. Thinking he's alone, but Emilia is already inside. Startled, he sees her, and she invites him in. They start chatting, and Emilia shows him a mark from when they were kids. The protagonist then invites her to go out the next day, but she gets excited and accidentally pushes them both into the water, revealing her body. She rushes out in embarrassment, and he reflects on his sister's warning about women and water again. On Zway Island, 3 people gather to plan something nefarious for the day after the concert, involving stealing a savage's core. When Sakura wakes up, she ponders what her mother used to tell her when she was a child. After reminiscing for a while, she wonders what the protagonist is up to. On his side, the protagonist visits Claire at her summer house. She and the other girls are in swimsuits, which makes him blush a bit. Claire gets up without realizing her bikini top is and the protagonist accidentally sees her without it. Liddy rushes out of the pool to defend Claire, but she slips and falls onto Hayato, making the situation even more awkward. After that embarrassing moment, Claire informs him that a variant stone has been stolen and assigns him the mission to investigate who took it. She then challenges him to a swimming duel, showing him a swimsuit she picked for him. However, he declines and leaves, leading her to call him a party pooper. Later, in the city center, the protagonist meets Emilia, who is dressed as a regular girl. They start walking and arrive at a store where she picks out normal clothes for him to change into. Emilia becomes fixated on a necklace, and he buys it for her as a gift. While they're there, he notices Fritz and Leisha entering the store, so they hide until the two pass. When they leave the store, they sit outside by a fountain. Emilia goes to get drinks because of the heat, while the protagonist stays there. He receives a call from Claire informing him that Sakura has gone out alone, so they need to watch out for her. She playfully mentions that he declined her challenge earlier, but accepted to hang out with Emilia. To make up for it, she suggests he take Emilia shopping, which he agrees to. As Claire ends the call, Sakura appears next to him, inviting him to see something secret. He agrees so that she won't see Emilia as a girl, and they leave, leaving Emilia wondering where he went when she returns. Hayato rides in a taxi with Sakura, texting Emilia to explain the situation. On the other hand, Sakura talks to her assistant, and they chat during the ride. Claire informs the others about what the protagonist is doing with Sakura, sounding a bit jealous. She reports that based on the GPS, they're heading to the Zway Grand Canyon. Once they arrive, Sakura shows the protagonist around, eventually reaching an overlook with a view of the Grand Canyon. Sakura thanks him for protecting the island since it's important to her. She has fond memories of the island from her childhood when her mother took her there. She starts humming a song, and the protagonist mentions that his sister hums it too. Sakura claims it's impossible since her mother composed the song for her as a child. However, she suddenly recalls something surprising. She remembers meeting him and his sister when she was a child and shared that very song with them. Thanks to her encouragement, the protagonist's sister decided to keep singing it. She then recounts her childhood encounter with Vitaly, who had ulterior motives despite saving her. In the end, she becomes emotional about everything and decides to write a song about it. They leave the overlook, but it's getting late, so they need to take a bus. Suddenly, the bus is attacked. The protagonist protects Sakura from the attacks, and when they exit the bus, they realize they're under attack by a Trina-class savage. While the protagonist battles the monster to protect Sakura and the others on the bus, Claire says she will send reinforcements to help and urges him to hold on. Needing assistance, Sakura activates her 100 and uses it defensively since she can't wield weapons. With Sakura holding the line, the protagonist focuses on attacking and manages to push the savage back. Sakura gets excited and hugs him, calling him her husband. However, the savage returns and attacks again, this time breaking through Sakura's defense and hurling her away. As the protagonist brushes to her side, the savage takes advantage of the opening, but Emilia intervenes. She's dressed as a man and stands between the protagonist and the savage. Fritz and Leisha also arrive, joining the fight against the savage. Despite cutting off its limbs, the savage regenerates. Eventually, they weaken it, and as the protagonist moves to destroy the monster's core, he's stopped by a boy who is part of the group that stole the savage's core. 2 girls accompany him, attacking those in the battle. One of the girls approaches the protagonist and mimics his weapon, creating an identical copy. After the savage, they turn on the protagonist and his selection companions. When they seem defeated, one of the new girls informs them that more reinforcements are coming. The trio takes the core, claiming that Vitaly will be pleased, and they retreat. Following this, the official reinforcements finally arrive. Back at the office, Claire explains that the newcomers could have been hunters, slayers who don't follow the law. Charlotte, present as well, mentions that they steal cores since they are similar to variant stones. Claire scolds Fritz, Leisha, and Emilia for their reckless actions, but also acknowledges their valor and tells them she'll consider them for the selection program. Afterward, the protagonist walks back to his room with Emilia, planning an uninterrupted date. Meanwhile, Sakura is on stage, eager for the next day to perform in honor of her mother. Later, the protagonist joins his sister for a practice session to support Sakura in her concert. During their rehearsal, Sakura calls for the protagonist. He heads to the beach, where Sakura is waiting, feeling down about her music. She claims her music is a deception, that people only listen because she's a variant, and she even asserts that the savage reacted to her voice. The protagonist encourages her, reminding her that he and Karen loved her music when they were kids and she wasn't a variant back then. Sakura gains confidence and they await the upcoming concert day. On the day of the concert, Sakura starts singing and uses her 100 to enhance the performance, eventually singing her mother's song for the first time. Listening, Karen realizes that Sakura is the girl they met in childhood. The following day, everyone bids farewell to Sakura. She gives Karen an autograph and promises to sing with her when she returns. She says goodbye to the protagonist, giving him a peck on the cheek, leaving Emilia, Claire, and Karen amazed. The next day, the protagonist wakes up to find Sakura above him, announcing her return. Claire enters and jests about suing Sakura, sounding a bit jealous. Emilia joins them, and the three start bickering over the protagonist's attention. However, he tells them all to leave, not wanting any of them to get hurt. Through a helicopter, Duel, Claire's brother, is traveling. Suddenly, he's informed that Zway has given a strange response, indicating that a certain event is approaching. On the other hand, the group of friends is at the beach having fun and enjoying the day. Sakura takes Hayato to play in the water, leaving Emilia frustrated as she must remain disguised as a boy and can't attract the protagonist's attention like the others. Later, Emil and Sakura have a discussion about who is closer to the protagonist. However, Karen arrives and asserts that she is the closest since she has known him since birth. Afterward, they have a meal, and when they finish, they thank Sakura for the delicious food. To burn off the meal, Fritz invites them to play volleyball. Hayato teams up with Emilia, while Fritz partners with Lesha. The game starts with the orange-haired girl making the first serve using her energy, causing the game to become intense. Midway through the game, Emilia fails to catch the ball, sending it to the side. The protagonist rushes to hit it, but accidentally falls into Claire's. At that moment, a helicopter with the Warsland emblem lands and Duel steps out, introducing himself and complimenting Hayato and Emilia for their skills. He then takes his sister on the helicopter due to an urgent matter they need to discuss. Later, at Little Garden, Emilia and the protagonist are summoned by President Claire to the student council room. Upon arriving, they find Fritz and Lesha there. Claire explains why she called them and assigns them a mission. She also informs Fritz and Lesha that they are now part of the selections and that this will be their first mission. After leaving the meeting, Duel calls the protagonist and asks him to accompany him for a conversation. They take an elevator to the lower levels of the building. There, Duel asks if the protagonist knows the source of Little Garden's energy. When the protagonist mentions the fusion nuclear reactor, Duel corrects him and shows him the true energy source. They reach a room where Zway is, the most crucial power source of Little Garden. Duel reveals that Zway is his and Claire's sister. Claire arrives and scolds her brother for bringing Hayato to the confidential location. They argue, but Duel reveals that the protagonist has sacred which might awaken Zway. He asks the protagonist to touch the capsule, but when he does, Zway doesn't wake up. Duel is a bit disappointed but believes he will succeed soon. He also mentions that Vitaly is after Zway. Duel leaves, playfully teasing his sister with the protagonist. Claire and Hayato take the elevator back up, and she promises to explain everything soon, instructing him to keep what he saw and heard a secret. The entire selections team travels by plane for their mission, discussing their plans and strategies. Upon arrival at the destination, they enter the base and head to their tent. Just before Hayato and Emil enter the tent, a girl rushes towards them, addressing Emilia as Princess, since her disguise doesn't fool her. The girl introduces herself to the protagonist as Claudia, a slayer from the Unified Britannia Army. Claudia pleads with Emilia to return with her to Gutenberg because she misses her. Meanwhile, the protagonist is bewildered by the situation, so he asks Emilia. Finally, Emilia reveals that she is the princess of the Gutenberg family. Claudia asks them to return together after completing the mission, but Emilia doesn't want to go back to her place of origin. She tells her friend that she likes Hayato, prompting Claudia to challenge the protagonist to a duel. They go to a dojo, where Claudia proposes a bet. If he loses, Emilia must return to Gutenberg with her, and if he wins, the princess can stay. The fight begins, and the protagonist wins, disappointing Claudia. Later, Emilia and the protagonist go out for a walk and dinner. While walking down the street, they pass by one of the hunters, who looks at them with malice, but they don't notice. The next day, the group gathers to review the mission they need to complete. They're divided into teams, with the protagonist in a group alongside Emilia, Claire, Claudia, and Erica. In the other group are Fritz, Lesha, Liddy, and 2 more girls. Afterward, each group departs in helicopters waiting outside to different locations. In the jungle, Hayato's group battles some savages until nightfall. Meanwhile, they are being observed by the group of hunters who are also in the same area. Since it's late, they take turns to keep watch and stand guard. Emilia wants to be with the protagonist, but Claudia and Claire forbid it, assigning her to guard duty with Erica. After several hours, their shift ends and it's Claire, Claudia, and Hayato's turn. The protagonist and Claire gaze at the stars. He remembers his sister, who loves stars, but due to her condition, she can't leave. Suddenly, Claudia arrives and informs them that she spotted a savage near the lake, so she sends both of them to deal with it. Unbeknownst to them, this was part of Claudia's plan to make them fall in love, so that she can take Emilia back to Gutenberg with her. The two head to the location and surprisingly encounter a savage. Claire moves to attack it with her 100. However, she slips in the mud and falls in front of the monster. Just as the savage is about to attack her, the protagonist saves her by savage. After this, it returned to the others, and she thanks him for saving her. She notices she's covered in mud and expresses her desire to clean up, so they go to the nearby lake. Meanwhile, Emilia manages to fall asleep and leaves the tent, finding Claudia alone. Claudia informs her that their guard companions have gone on a lakeside date, which upsets Emilia. On the other hand, Claire removes all her and enters the lake. The protagonist, who has his back turned, asks her about the water, and she says it feels like thermal springs. Emilia is upset about what her friend said, but she still refuses to go to Gutenberg. Meanwhile, Claire talks to the protagonist about her sister, revealing she became a variant due to her mother. She explains how her sister ended up in that state, protecting her, and she feels selfish for fighting just for herself. Hayato tells her that he also fights for his sister, and it's not wrong. She's moved by his words and asks him to keep fighting alongside them. Suddenly, the protagonist receives a call. Claire gets out of the lake, but she slips and falls on him. He's surprised, but quickly hands her his clothes, then answers the call. Another team informs him that the 3 hunters from before are attacking everyone. They spot a flare in the sky from Fritz, so Hayato goes to find the girls, while Claire rushes to help the other team. The hunters are attacking Fritz's team and have defeated everyone except Liddy, who is determined to hold on until help arrives. She defends herself, but one of the hunters attacks her with her variant power and defeats her. Just as he's about to finish her off, Claire appears and stops him, praising Liddy for holding on and causing her to faint in relief upon seeing the president. Claire offers the hunters a chance to surrender and reveal everything about Vitaly in exchange for protection, but they refuse. A girl attacks Claire, but she easily defeats her since she's wearing her full body armor. Claire once again tells them to surrender, but then it starts raining, and the protagonist mentions to his friends Nezet and Nakri that they're lucky. The hunter, named Kroven, tells Nezet and Nakri to attack since Claire loses power when it rains. They attack her, and Kroven manages to land a quick blow that knocks her to the ground. Just as he's about to deliver the final blow, Erica appears and restrains him with her chains. Emilia and Claudia, accompanied by Hayato, also arrive, and they begin to fight against the hunters, engaging in a tough and lengthy battle. Emilia defeats Nakri, leaving her unconscious, and then goes on to defeat Nezet as well. On the other side, the protagonist is battling Kroven, who uses his variant energy to the fullest, straining his body, while the protagonist dons his full body armor. During the fight, the protagonist glimpses the sad memories of Kroven and his 2 sisters, and the suffering they endured. When the hunter seems defeated, a new type of savage emerges from the water, a dragon-like creature with wings. It starts firing at the remaining team's camps. Kroven seizes the opportunity and returns the stolen hunters to Claire. He proposes a deal. If they manage to defeat the monster, they must let him keep its core. He approaches the monster and unleashes his energy to the maximum, then begins attacking it. Despite warnings from the others, he persists. When he strikes it with his sword, he realizes the monster has a protective barrier, but he continues trying. However, the monster aims and shoots at him, throwing him far away. The protagonist rushes to his aid and manages to save him from the impact, though Kroven asks the protagonist to protect his sisters. Nessa deactivates the interference they had caused, and they all devise a plan to attack the monster together with their powers. However, their combined effort falls short due to insufficient energy. Charlotte informs them that Lize recommends the protagonist transfer the variant virus to Claire, meaning they need to share it. Emilia strongly objects to this, but given the dire circumstances, she agrees. Hayato kisses the president, and her energy starts to increase. She asks everyone to prepare to attack the monster again. They all fire simultaneously, finally breaking the barrier. The protagonist then uses his variant power to deliver the final blow to the savage, splitting it in 2. The protagonist collapses into the water, and Emilia quickly jumps in to assist. When she finds him, she gives him a to restore some of his energy. As they return from the mission, Claire worries about what the hunters might do next and what her brother's plans might entail. At the hospital, Hayato remains unconscious, and Charlotte assures Emil that he will be alright. Emilia leans down to give the protagonist a but Karen and Sakura enter the room, finding the scene suspicious. Suddenly, the protagonist reacts and everyone is relieved by his recovery. On another note, a woman learns that Kroven and his sisters won't be returning. As she gazes at some capsules, she remarks that it doesn't matter, as nothing can stop her plan. In a forest, 2 slayers are battling a red savage when they finally realize it has no core, leaving them stunned. Suddenly, the monster emits a sound that disorients them, and a woman takes advantage of this to attack them from behind. Afterward, the woman exclaims that her experiment worked. In the student council office, Claire holds a meeting with the selected individuals and informs them that the hunters are confined to a room, but they haven't been able to extract any useful information from them. She also shares that Vitaly has escaped their base, and due to this, they need to increase security as the Little Garden Anniversary Festival approaches. This festival is a school event where civilians are invited, so they plan to dock at a port during the celebration. As they leave to make preparations, slayers from other regions start arriving, including Claudia, who continues to pester Emilia. After all the festival preparations, Hayato goes to visit his sister and notices that Sakura is heading to another room. Upon following her and entering the room, he finds Karen, Charlotte, and Sakura. They tell him that his sister will perform at the festival, aided by 100 that will allow her to fly and walk normally. However, Sakura isn't entirely confident about it, but her brother encourages her to give it a try. Sakura then escorts him out of the room as he can't be present for the rehearsals. The festival finally begins, and the group of friends is on guard duty while the crowd enjoys the festivities. After several hours, the protagonist takes a break with Emilia, who's very affectionate with him. Suddenly, they hear someone calling them and see Laisha and Erica dressed as waitresses in a cafe. Emil snaps a photo of the vice president and teases her about sending it to Claire. They enter the cafe and find many girls dressed similarly. Erica suggests that Emil should also dress up, and since everyone assumes he's a guy, they think it's a great idea for a guy to do it. They convince Emilia to dress up, and when she returns in the waitress outfit, everyone is astonished as she looks convincingly like a girl. They jokingly pressure the protagonist to touch her, which she claims is padded, and Erica ends up pushing him, causing him to fall onto Emilia. Everyone takes the opportunity to snap pictures of the scene. They want to continue teasing them, but Erica claims she needs to get back to work, leaving them alone. Later, Hayato visits Karen and finds her dressed for her concert, so he wishes her luck. Suddenly, Sakura and her assistant enter, and they discuss the upcoming performances. Unexpectedly, Judel arrives and introduces himself to the girls, wishing them both luck before departing. The concert begins, and Sakura delivers a powerful opening using her 100. While everyone is captivated by the performance, the woman who controls the Red Savages enters the venue. After hypnotizing the guarding slayer, she makes her way down a long hallway. Meanwhile, Sakura finishes her first song and introduces Karen, who appears on stage and delivers heartfelt words. She then activates her 100 and transforms, proceeding to sing a beautiful song that fills the audience with pride. Karen finishes her song, and then Sakura announces that they will now sing together. At a certain distance away, Jubal is observing them. As both girls sing, everyone watches them with concentration, and Charlotte realizes that Laissez enjoys the song. On the other hand, Claire is informed that a slayer has been found unconscious near the staff entrance and has no memory of what happened. The president begins investigating the details and calls Hayato and Emil. While people are peacefully enjoying the festival day, a robotic bee appears, and when Erica tries to catch it with her chain, it explodes. However, alarm sets in as many more of these robotic bees start appearing. From within the control tower, an explosion is heard, causing a power outage. As they investigate, they discover that these bees are emerging from cleaning robots and causing extensive damage. Claire orders all remaining bees to be destroyed, and Erica informs her that they found variable stone particles within them. This leads Claire and Charlotte to conclude that Vitaly is responsible for this. As a result, they decide to cancel the festival and evacuate Little Garden. Meanwhile, the protagonist and Emilia respond to the call, but people are still in the stadium where the concert is taking place. Sakura receives the alert as well and announces to everyone that the festival is canceled. Suddenly, explosions are heard, prompting her to calm the crowd. On the other hand, Charlotte shows Claire's security footage revealing that the woman who entered is Vitaly, confirming their suspicions. The president orders tighter surveillance on the hunters, while the selected students, along with martial arts students, are dealing with the robotic bees. One of these bees infiltrates the main servers and introduces a virus into Little Garden's computers, rendering the system more vulnerable. Due to this, they fail to notice an impending aircraft attack in time. The planes crash into Little Garden, and they realize that a virus has compromised the security system. Numerous savages without cores emerge from these planes, which Charlotte names replicants, as they are robotic copies of savages created by Vitaly. Claire instructs Erica and Liddy to fight against these replicants, and at that moment, Hayato and Emilia arrive at the president's location. She instructs them to watch the hunters because it involves Vitaly, and they agree. However, another plane appears and crashes into the protective barrier. Larger replicants emerge from it and begin damaging the barrier. Seeing the situation, Claire becomes worried and decides that she will join the fight, but Chris stops her, reminding her that she must remain in command as the president. The protagonist and Emilia offer to go, but Claire refuses. However, Laissez approves, and with the memory of their previous conversation during the mission, the president agrees, but on the condition that they return safely. Meanwhile, Charlotte suggests to Claire that Mie may handle the hunters, as she is capable. On the other hand, the hunters are discussing how the attack cannot be initiated by Vitaly. However, she arrives and confirms that she is attacking Little Garden, requesting their assistance. Croven disagrees with the woman's plan as he doesn't see them as evil. Nevertheless, she activates a device that emits a strong sound, subduing them. While the selections tackle the replicants below, Hayato arrives with Emilia at the damaged barrier and prepares to fight. Mime rushes towards the hunters and Vitaly appears her. However, Mime evades her and manages to knock her down. When she goes to check on the boys, Vitaly shoots her from behind, revealing that she's an automaton robot. Vitaly, controlling the boys, uses Croven to neutralize Mime and then leaves the scene with the captive students. Vitaly, along with the controlled hunters, heads to Sector 11, destroying all doors in their path to reach Zway. While Claire is taking actions to stop Vitaly, she receives a call from her brother Judel, who tells her that he will personally deal with Vitaly since he knows her. He heads to Sector 11. Claire is somewhat worried, but she focuses on the efforts of the Slayers outside, such as Hayato and Emilia, who are trying to stop them. As Vitaly and the boys proceed through a sector, a security device emerges from a wall, Nakri, and rendering her unconscious. Her brothers stop in concern, but Vitaly compels them with the device to continue and leave Nakri behind. At that moment, Mimi destroys the controlling device. Both begin to exchange fire until Mime gets but continue. Vitaly flees from the scene. The boys worry upon seeing Mime, but she reassures them and promises to get help for them. Vitaly manages to reach where Zway is, but Judel is also there. They argue, and she decides at the capsule containing Zway, but to her surprise, the bullets don't reach her. She realizes that the girl is awake, and Judel explains that he used her as a pawn to make this all happen, as Sakura and Karen's singing awakened Zway. Vitaly becomes enraged upon realizing she was manipulated again and Judel, but Zway intercepts the bullet. Judel takes advantage of Zway's inability to harm him and Vitaly. Vitaly is defeated and lying on the ground, and Judel instructs his sister to return to the capsule, but she tells him she has something to do first. Meanwhile, the replicants emit a paralyzing sound that affects only the Slayers, rendering them unable to fight. Hayato and Emilia struggle due to this, and the sound torments Sakura and Karen as well. They contemplate how to counteract it, and Zway appears before them, suggesting they use their singing to counter the sound. She Karen's forehead, allowing her to walk again. The two girls activate their 100 and start singing together. This song enables the Slayers to regain mobility and energy, prompting the protagonist to use his variant power to the maximum. He attacks the giant replicant with his sword, causing it to stop damaging the barrier and fall into Little Garden. However, the boy collapses from expending all his energy. Just when it seemed everything was going well, they realize the replicant is still alive and attacking in the city. The Hunter brothers engage the monster in battle, but it defeats Nakri and then Croven. Seeing this, Claire decides to join the fight. When the monster is about to destroy Croven, Nezet contemplates what she must do. Using her variant power, she replicates the monster's abilities. She transforms into a type of savage and the replicant with a single blow. However, she loses control and begins attacking everyone. Charlotte informs Claire that Nezet is in the same situation Zway was in when she caused an explosion that left her asleep long ago. Nevertheless, she tells Claire that the only way to stop Nezet is to kill her, so Claire decides to do it for the greater good. At that moment, Zway appears to Hayato, instructing him to help Nezet and the others. Despite his doubts, she assures him he can, and she tells him to restore his energy. Claire dons her full-body armor and intends to use her cannon to stop Nezet once and for all, as it is her responsibility to protect everyone. Before she can act, the protagonist asks for a moment to help Nezet. After considering it, she agrees, and the boy uses his 100 to approach and assist Nezet. Hayato starts talking to her to calm her down, but she doesn't react and only grows more enraged, attacking uncontrollably. After several attempts, Nezet is about to explode. The protagonist uses his variant power and his sword to reach her, persuading her to stop and regain control. She regains consciousness and complies, returning to her normal state. Achieving the goal without harming Nezet, Emilia approaches and hugs the protagonist, congratulating him. Croven and Nakri approach as well, expressing gratitude through gestures for helping their sister. Meanwhile, Claire watches the scene proud and calm until she feels Zway hugging her and thanking her for protecting Little Garden. But when she turns, her sister is gone. Night falls, and after everything that transpired, Hayato and Emilia are talking while watching fireworks. Finally, she confesses, among other things, that she wants to be with him, so she kisses him. The protagonist is slightly surprised but reciprocates, saying he wants the same. At that moment, everyone else arrives and is astonished to see the two of them. Claudia becomes very upset about this and ends up revealing Emil's true identity to everyone. Emilia has no choice but to admit that she is a girl and a princess, revealing her true name. Everyone is amazed to learn she is a princess, finding it romantic, but Sakura jealousy rebukes the notion. Suddenly, Claire appears, aiming her cannon at them with jealousy. She threatens them and fires, narrowly missing, leaving Emilia terrified and cursing her in fear.